And ever since we met, you gotta hold on. It happens to be true. I only wanna be.
While watching The Handmaid's Tale, I developed an unhealthy parasocial attachment to the character of Janine.
Take one, Janine. Oh.
She just gradually became one of the more likable women on the show.
Hi.
Someone that I really wanted to see win. Even a once strict and cruel Aunt Lydia grew a fondness for her. In the early seasons, it's quite easy to write her off as just another ditzy and very detached from her own reality sidekick of the show's main character, June. Initially, she was presented to be a bit of a burden, overly erratic, a liability, a ticking time bomb who just couldn't keep her shit together. While in contrast, a more sensible June strategically minds her P's and Q's while plotting how to get her and her daughter out of Gilead. But by season 4, specifically in the episode titled Milk, I often found myself rooting more and more for Janine, often yelling at the screen after Gilead's attack on Chicago, "June, go back and find Janine." When June reunites with her old friend Moira during this time, again yelling at the screen, "June, don't leave Janine." I think it's because in the span of these 2 episodes, Milk and Chicago, we see that although June is touted as the heroine of the series for being the operative brains behind releasing 80+ children from the oppressive land of Gilead, and also leading the escape of several of her friends from a life of servitude, we are shown how Janine is willing to make sacrifices on a much more intimate and personal level for the betterment of her friends. And honestly, you can't help but rock with how loyal Janine is. But there is something darker about this character's evolution, which very eerily mirrors some aspects of today's society. And that is Janine's numbness and acceptance to her own sexual exploitation, which it's really sad to watch and also really hard to watch. We all bore witness to Janine's spiral from being a confused handmaid to an oddly cheerful colony worker, to a runaway rebel to Aunt Lydia's henchman, to a Jezebel's S-worker, and then to being trapped in a house as the new quote-unquote handmaid of the most despicable piece of commander in the entire series. And in contrast to most of the other handmaids on the show, Janine seemed to be the only one who was, well, kind of okay, content, unbothered with the reality that was Gilead, her own reality she was just kind of fine with. She just seemed more accepting of it than most, and not because she was some sort of religious zealot like this chick right here. Let's break down Janine's radical acceptance of her varying and escalating roles of sexual servitude in Gilead. It starts off subtle enough, but Janine's posting at Commander Warren Putnam's house is an emotional one, and not just because she's forced to give up her second child upon birth, but also because the audience later learns when she's about to off herself that Commander Putnam has led a very, very vulnerable Janine to believe that they were actually going to run away together with their baby. He convinced her that they were in love. And this isn't uncommon in Gilead. Fred was also trying to do something similar with June or Offred. It's almost like it's not enough for the men to perform the ceremony. That's no fun because there's no manipulation involved. The girls are already obliged to do it. No, they've got to play with your mind a bit. They must also lure and try to entrap you into some sick and unrealistic fantasy where it feels like you're making choices. The illusion of freedom from being a handmaid is what they're offering, but it's still tied to idolizing them. But back to Janine, she hasn't just been engaging with Commander Putnam in the official ceremony, but they have also been doing other things together that his wife won't do, and whatever lies he's fed her is why she's willing to do it. And it's easy to sympathize with Janine in this moment because what woman hasn't experienced being lied to just so that XY can get whatever he wants? So when this truth is uncovered, the reaction is, oh, poor Janine. The commander has further sexually exploited her by manipulating her feelings. But then in Chicago, she voluntarily exploits herself. So it's in Chicago that we see that it's not just the men of Gilead who are utter creeps, right? After all, what is a good crisis, famine, and war if you can't trade intimate favors for food, protection, and a place to stay?
Which one of you is staying with me?
What?
That's what this guy did. Like I stated earlier, Chicago is the turning point for me when Janine elevated from pesky sidekick to badass loyal friend. But why was Janine so quick to succumb to this sick request from Steven to be his lapdog? I mean, she didn't even flinch, think about it, ponder, nothing. When I first saw this scene, the first thing that came to mind was this was her way of showing some sort of loyalty to June. June has been an integral piece in her surviving and escaping Gilead after all. And on the topic of survival, that's also another obvious conclusion as well. I mean, ultimately, that's how she survived Gilead, by remaining sexually compliant and obedient to the needs of men. But it wasn't until I finished watching the entire series and witnessing her journey to Jezebel's that I concluded we were all watching the results of the successful conditioning of Gilead and the desensitization to her own exploitation. Eureka, the men no longer have to manipulate her through religion in order for her to give herself up freely to them. Now she just does it on her own. For a short time, we see Janine embody the cool girl archetype.
Nick loved a girl I was pretending to be. Cool girl. Cool girl is hot. Cool girl is game. Cool girl is fun. Cool girl never gets angry at her man. She only smiles in a chagrin-loving manner and then presents her mouth for fucking.
Steven's not that bad. Those are her own words, despite the fact that she had to trade her body for a place to stay.
Maybe.
Has this always been Janine, or did Gilead make her that way? That's the biggest question I have.
You know, I really didn't like you whenever we first met. And I was right the first time.
What? Why?
So the only way to describe how it felt to discover that Janine ended up at Jezebel's in season 6's episode Devotion was heartbroken. And just when you think that things couldn't get any worse, the knife is twisted and turned even more. Watching her navigate, adapt, and survive this new circumstance is torture. It's like watching your dear friend silently drowning. Torture because we all saw her situation go from bad, which was being a handmaid, to worse, being in the colonies, to better, escaping, to hopeful, okay, now she's back, but she's at Commander Lawrence's house, to worse, Jezebel, to the absolute pits of hell, being in the hands of Commander Bell. When we first see her at Jezebel's, it's so immediately obvious that she's complacent. That's just her life now and she's accepting of it. Again, desensitized to her own exploitation because she has to be. It's how she survives. But then when we're introduced to the most insidious man on the show, Bell, and when Janine is spared at Jezebel's and is posted to his house, the brief moment of salvation that we all felt in relief for her now felt like a very cryptic and grim sentencing. The audience doesn't even have to visually see what's going on in that household to know that Janine is in some serious, inexplicably grave danger. While June was calculating and sometimes came off as cold, I felt like, in contrast, Janine has always been the emotional heart of the show. She's hopeful, even though she's naive and childlike at times, but still very deeply human in her expressions. And to watch that deeply human person's spirit continually crushed to be repurposed and reused by Gilead over and over and over again was heartbreaking.